All right. All right. Well, welcome everyone. I'm so happy we have such a great turnout this evening. Um, we've sort of done the roll call already. Lisa, if you keep monitoring that, and if you see someone else that comes in that you don't know who they are, please contact them through the chat and try and get them into the attendance. So there's a lot of important stuff we're going to cover tonight that's going to help this tournament run smoothly. And if there are things for the coaches, there are things for the leagues, for the president. I'm very happy you're all here. Somebody we're getting some feedback. So if you could all please mute your phones or devices, that'll help us out. If you do have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask. We want to make sure everyone gets this straight. I am recording it and it will be out on our YouTube channel. Maybe not till tomorrow morning, but it'll be there within a day or so. I've also sent all of the handouts that we're going to be showing in this presentation to your presidents. If you want them, or you should want them, go ahead and ask them to email them to you. All right, so the first thing we're going to cover are requirements for hosting a District 6 tournament for everyone involved. So to be eligible to host the tournament, the league must be in good standing with the district. That means all their fees are current. They must have chartered in the division of play for the current season. They must have submitted ASAP by April 1st, which all of our leagues did. They must have fields that meet the minimum dimensions, which you all do. Must have scoreboards, a working PA system, and have available restroom facilities. So everybody's good on that. I've visited all of the leagues that are new to the district, and they all have got the passing approval. Some of them might need portable PAs, but they're going to take care of that, and we're going to be in good shape. Moving on, the district administrator, that's me. I am the tournament director. I will be at every single game that I can possibly be at. Since we've grown a little bit this year, we will have a couple nights where I will not be able to be at both sites at the same time. We will have a site director that night. It will probably be Brian Bain or Don Mason. And if for some reason they can't be there, it would be the league president of the league that's hosting that night. I am responsible for providing the tournament schedule in an approved Little League format, which all of our tournaments are double elimination, pure double elimination. For finalizing the tournament schedule 2 weeks prior to the start of the tournament, whichever is the earliest, and those will get finalized this evening. For holding the manager, coach, and umpire meeting and tournament draw 2 weeks prior to the start of the first tournament game. And we are going to beat that by 1 day. Tournament starts 2 weeks from tomorrow. For evaluating and delegating delegating the evaluation or affidavit books, I will be doing the evaluation of all your affidavit books. Inspecting the fields, which I've been doing. I still have to get to Delta and Hagerstown. I know those fields well, so that's just going to be I'm just going to show up, give them the Narcan packets that I've been needing to get to them, and say hi, and that'll be it, because it's just a formality. For providing the winning team with the official Little League District 6 championship banner, I have all the championship banners already, so that's not going to be something that we need to worry about. For providing the winning team's manager with the state tournament packet, and those are starting to roll in. For Newcastle Henry County, which is our only junior league tournament team, I've already sent them that packet. That's the only one that's been turned into me so far. The rest of them, I will be getting those and on the field after we present your winning team with your banner and the players with their medals. I will give the coach their tournament packet and the pins that they will trade with the other teams at the state tournament. What's next? All right. I'm also responsible for sending the state tournament hosts the name of the winning league and contact information for the winning manager and coaches, and for also providing the state tournament host with the roster and the winning team photo. So that's what I'm responsible for. The host league, and especially you new leagues, need to listen to this. For providing tournament approved baseballs and softballs, 3 balls per game with a 4th nice ball available. They have to be designated with RST. They have to be Little League approved balls with RST designation. Now for the majors softball tournament, I get yearly for the regional that we host way more softballs than we could possibly ever use. So I will be providing the softballs for the major softball tournament. Everyone else, all the rest of the host leagues for the night that they host will need to provide RST baseballs or softballs for those tournament games. Okay. I have spoken to all of the leagues about this at one point or another, including the new ones that we'll be hosting this year. You're responsible for creating and maintaining a buffer between the fans and the players in the dugouts. That's typically just some roped off area if your dugouts are open. That just keeps the spectators away a little bit. And we've discussed that at the different leagues that I've gone to for inspections. For providing field maintenance crew, scorekeepers, and announcers for each game. For providing a runner to serve the needs of the umpires for each game. That's typically getting them bottles of water between innings or whenever they might need it. Now this is those last 2 categories, the field maintenance, scorekeepers, announcers, and the runners, those are required by Little League. This next one is something that I require. It's a board member on duty to handle non-game related problems that may occur during the games. And a lot of you have heard my story before about the time when we were hosting a district tournament game at Yorktown, my home league. And there were only 3 of us board members on duty. One was in the concession stand and 2 of us were in the scoring tower. I was doing the PA announcing and the scorebook, and the lady next to me was running the scoreboard. Well, somebody fell and split their skull open, and there was nobody from the board there to help them. So the lady that was working the scoreboard had to go and help them get the ambulance called and all that. So you can't really have the people that are managing the game, doing game operations, running off to do things to save people that might have split their skull open or have some other issue at the ballpark. So I want you all to have some person there, a board member on duty or some other person who their sole purpose is just to handle things that are not game related. Okay. Moving on, the host league is responsible for having the fields prepared and ready 45 minutes prior to game time, for relining the fields between games. You need to have a concession stand. You need to maintain the restrooms during the tournament. Since we only do one night at a time for league hosting, typically that's not as critical as when you've got a league that hosts the entire tournament and the teams are coming back there multiple nights in a row and the bathroom isn't maintained and it starts to get gross. So, but just make sure your bathrooms are cleaned up. And then for providing the umpires with a hot dog and a drink or something like that, from the host concession stand. Now, number 6 here, don't pay very much attention to that. The violation of these guidelines will be reviewed by the district presidents, and the presidents will recommend any penalties or sanctions, something we don't really ever have to worry about. And we just deal with it and make recommendations for the next season. I have any questions about those host guidelines before we move on? All right.
And the only question in the chat was what RST stands for on the balls. Then Brian answered that he believes it's regular season tournament.
Yes. Yes. There are regular season balls. They have RS on them for regular season. The RS-T, regular season or tournament, are the balls that need to be used for the tournament. I don't know how they're different, but they're designated differently on the ball. All right, anything else? All right, we'll move on to the next topic then. That's tournament communications. First thing is where you will find brackets and scores. That is our website, indiana6.org. If I am not at the tournament site, which there's 3 or 4 games where I will not be at the tournament site, the president or the site director must text me with the final scores of those games. Now, just let me pop over here and show you. This is indiana6.org. You can reach it from our other tournament site, which is our other district site, which is indiana6ll.org. But this will have the brackets for all of the tournaments. The coaches pitch tournament, it's got the pool play in the bracket. And then each of the different tournaments. And when we go through the tournament draws shortly, we'll access these pages. I will update them on the site, and then you'll be able to share them with your teams at that time, because they will all be updated by the time we're done. All right, one point that I do want to make is that our Sports Connect site, that's the other site I was mentioning, indianad6ll.org. I'm not going to have time to update that during the tournament. It doesn't get updated very much anyway. But if you do go there, there is a link to indiana6.org, the tournament website, and also the state brackets. There's a link to where you can access them as well. Going back to Indiana 6 for just a second. Well, maybe I don't. I'm confusing myself just a bit. I thought I had a link to the, well, I do up here, state tournaments. If you link there for state tournaments, you can go and find information about all the state tournaments. I am the director, the information director for the State District Administrator Association. So I'm the one that updates all these. When I get the packets from the other state tournament hosts, you'll be able to go on here. There'll be additional links here where you will click on those links, and it will take you to all the information about the specific state tournament. Right now, all it's out there are the dates, the tournament director's contact information, and then the host leagues. And I haven't been given the senior state tournament information yet, but I believe it's going to be the same spot as the softball at Cleveland Township. All right, going back to this. All right, so that's where you'll find brackets and scores. If we have any weather information that needs to be shared, if we have cancellations or anything like that, the first order of business will be direct contact by phone and or by texting. And we have a phone chain for that. I will be contacting the league president and the team manager to let them know what the situation is. It's then the responsibility of the team manager to contact the coach, and then the coach to the players, or actually it would be the manager, and then the manager, the coaches, and the players. And then DJ, our UIC, will be contacting the umpires. So that's the phone chain. After that, after I've contacted the league president and the manager, I will be updating our X site, formerly Twitter. There's a link to it here. And I will say that this is one-way communication. I believe it's set up to where people can't respond or put anything else out there, just me. But if it does, this is not an avenue for self-expression and for comments and things like that. Then additionally, we have a Facebook site that I don't have privileges to update, I don't believe, but Lisa, my wife, Don Mason, and Brian Bain all have privilege to update that, and they will be updating that with weather information.
Hey, Jim, since the Facebook is a group, anybody can provide an update and we monitor those to keep out the scammers.
Okay. All right. So that's more information about Facebook. And I even have additional information about the Facebook next. Other tournament information will also appear on Facebook. There's the link to our Facebook group. And or you can search on Facebook for Indiana District 6 Little League. And as Lisa said, any member of the Facebook group can provide updates, but please keep the contributions positive. Grievances will not be aired on our social media sites. Our administrators will delete inappropriate comments, and they also reserve the right to block members from further use. I will say one other thing about our Twitter site, our X site. If I have time during games, I do often provide inning by inning updates when games are going on, but that's only if I have time, and hopefully I do. But if not, you might not see those out there. But if they are out there, that's where you can see those inning by inning. And then the last thing on the list here is we do again this year have an official tournament photographer, and that's Lisa. And she puts the photos out on her website, kempphotos@smugmug.com. Those photos are for sale, and there's other things out there that you can put the photos on, like coffee mugs and things like that. Now, I know that other leagues, that some of your leagues have photographers that come and take pictures. I hope you get reimbursement from them in some way for them doing that for you, and they just don't take all the profits themselves. But for our site, 100% of district's tournament purchases from kempphotos.com come back and are donated to District 6. So hopefully you will buy some of the photos that Lisa takes, because that's one way that the district can make money, and we don't have very many options for doing that. Any questions about any of these communication items before we move on? All right, you will be getting this page in the handouts. Your presidents should have them already, and they should forward those on to the coaches. All right, we will move on to the rainout procedure. Starting last year, we had an official rainout procedure that we want to follow each year, and it's in writing. So everybody knows what it is, and I'm going to explain it to everyone. Should rain impact the tournament site on game day, host leagues must make every effort to bring the fields to a playable condition so the tournament can stay on schedule. If we get rain the morning or afternoon of the games, a go, no-go decision must be made by 3 p.m. so that players and their families can be informed before they leave for the ballpark. This is a hard deadline. The morning of a tournament game, I will be getting a hold of the league presidents, and the league presidents will be responsible for either getting the information from somebody or checking it out themselves, what the condition of the field is. I will typically call people early in the morning, well before noon, to see just what's going on. And then I might check in later around noon, and then the final check will be about 2:30 p.m. And I will expect the league president to give me some idea of if they think they can play or not. And actually, I want them to tell me if an honest opinion and if they can play or not. And then I will make the decision and get everybody contacted by 3 p.m. Whether we're go or no go on playing that evening. We've already talked about the communication chain and updating on Twitter. Any questions about those no-go goes from the presidents before I move on? All right. So if the fields cannot be brought to a playable condition, then the rainout procedure goes into effect. This procedure was formalized by unanimous vote of the league presidents at last May's district monthly meeting. So if a tournament day is totally lost, all games for that day will be pushed to the next day at the tournament location for the next day's games. Okay. All remaining tournament games for the specific division that's rained out will be pushed out one day. All right. So I think you all are familiar with that. One day, one site will host. The next day, another site will host. The next day, another site will host. The idea is that all leagues in the tournament get a host a day of the tournament. So the original host site for the day, well, I think I skipped something. Yeah. So if we're rained out, everything gets pushed, and the games get pushed to the next day's host site. Okay. If the original host site for the day will be awarded a new tournament day later in the tournament, should one exist. All right. If the number of tournament games scheduled exceed the capacity of the new host site, either we will add a second host site for that night if we have umpires available, and it will preferably be the original host site. If we would run into issues with umpires, we probably would need to go to Newcastle or possibly even Harry Bridges, our two sites that have fields, have multiple fields, baseball fields. I think both or two of the three softball sites have multiple fields, but the baseball, we only have two that have multiple fields, so it might have to go to Newcastle if we don't have umpires available. But that would be something we'd have to do on the fly we would not be able to meet the goals of this procedure. All right, the logic behind pushing to the next day's tournament site is that league volunteers plan their schedules. The leagues plan their volunteers and their volunteer schedules for being at the ballpark on a specific day, and pushing the schedule to a host site alters the volunteer schedule for the remaining tournament, for all the remaining tournaments. So I kind of fumbled through that, but you guys can reread it and see the logic behind it. Now, the whole reason that we brought this procedure into writing is that one year we had a situation at one field where it was totally lost for the day, but we had another field in the district that was dry. And to keep things on schedule, the other league offered to host the games that night. And so everyone agreed, and we moved the host site to that other field. But there was a misunderstanding that they were trading nights with the league that got rained out, not having it being pushed there in addition to the days they had already agreed to. So this last bullet point on here says, and makes it clear that if there is a league in the district that has dry fields and agrees to host the rained out schedule night, they do it in trade with the league that they got rained out. Okay. And so also the decision to trade host days must be made by 3 p.m. the day of the rain out. All right. Are there any questions about that? Any of that before we move on? Kind of fumbling through a lot of this, but that is the rain out procedure. All right, we will move on. This is one that's important for everyone to, all these are important for you to pay attention to, but we're going to briefly go through participation in other programs. One thing I want to mention, because this has been an issue in the past, and it's really unacceptable. Once set, the district tournament game schedule will not be altered in any way to accommodate a player or a team participating in another program, like a travel program. All right. We are not going to affect our schedule and our games because a league decided they were going to put a team or they have players on their team that are participating in another program. Okay. Leagues are allowed to do that. They're allowed to participate in other programs during the tournament. But I want to explain to you what Little League regulations say about that so that you make sure that you're doing it correctly within the rules and don't threaten to lose your tournament eligibility because of it. I'm not going to talk about this first paragraph because it just basically says if you violate Regulation 1G, you run the risk of individuals or whole teams losing their tournament eligibility. And it just cites the regulations there. We'll move on down to what Regulation 1G says. And it basically says, I'm not going to read all of it, that for this team that would be playing during the Little League tournament for another program, any funds raised using the name or trademarks of Little League must only be used for the Little League activity. And any purchases for non-Little League programming or for individuals participating in a non-Little League program should not be used using Little League funds. Now, when your teams go off to these other tournaments, and we will have teams doing this, not during our tournament, but before the tournament, typically we'll have teams go off and play in a warm-up tournament. When you guys do this, you got to know that you cannot be wearing your Little League uniforms. They can have the patch on them or anything that says Little League or anything on them. And you have to know that your Little League insurance, if you use Little League insurance, isn't going to cover you in that tournament. So those are really the two things that you need to have clear and know to not endanger yourself with Little League, is that funding has to be independent of your Little League program. I think I said two things, it's three things. Funding has to be independent. You can't wear your Little League uniforms, and insurance isn't going to cover you. Okay. So that's really those are the three things that you need to know. Any questions about any of those before we move forward? Don, do you think I covered that effectively or got everything through? He might still be driving. I'm just going to move forward if you guys don't have any questions. All right. Brian Bain, are you still here?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right. Brian is going to present the next portion of the meeting, and that is game procedures. So Brian, it's all yours.
Sounds good. So we'll try to make that quick because I know everybody wants to get to the most important part of this call. But I do want to prepare you for as a team. So you coaches on here that are also leading an all-star team, but also for the districts, the leagues that will be hosting districts tournament games. Many of you on here already do this with your experience, but just kind of go over it. So a lot of new people that are on this call, but Jim has this pretty much down to the minute as to what you need to do to prepare yourselves for game times as well as the leagues. Just to reiterate the leagues, I would recommend that you guys have pre-tournament meetings, whoever's being involved, your board members or your workers, and kind of adhere to the time frame that's on this sheet. And I believe, like Jim said, he has sent it out to the board president or your board president. So make sure you get these in advance. But it's pretty simple and really laid out. 60 minutes before your game time, you're going to want to, if you're hosting, you're going to want to start the pregame music. So again, talk about that pre-meeting, having people aligned, obviously having a game pre-game music list, and then know that somebody is kind of guiding these teams, as well as if you're a team coach, to know when you should be arriving. So 60 minutes before game time, teams are arriving. The pregame music is being played by the host league. The coin flip will happen as soon as you have both managers of the teams in place. The DA does not have to preside over the coin flip, so you can find somebody like myself or possibly a board president if you see them on site. And then again, teams will not enter dugouts until the coin flip because you won't know if you're the home or away, and most of the leagues have designated home and away down their dugouts. You'll move right along 15 minutes, so 45 minutes before game time. Obviously, again, the host districts will want to make sure that they are working on their fields to be ready in time, 45 minutes at the latest. PA announcer and scorer will be in place. So again, talking about your pre-meeting, knowing people in place, those announcers and scorers need to be in place so they can be prepared to have everything ready so we don't delay any games, especially the start of a game preparation. 40 minutes, PA announcer will request that the managers bring their lineup cards to the scoring tower if they have not already. So I would recommend you managers, I know that sometimes you're having game time decisions, but I would recommend to get that to the announcer, to the tower as quick as possible. You got a lot to do, as well as the tower has a lot to do to get things ready.
Brian, I want to add one. I want to add
go
one
ahead.
thing about that.
Please.
For those of you who not participated in a District 6 tournament before, we do have special District 6 lineup cards. They're 4-copy, and they were made with umpires in mind. And we will require you to fill out your lineups on those cards. I will give you 2 of those when you arrive at the tournament site for your first 2 games. And then after your first 2 games are won, then I will give you additional tickets or additional lineup cards as needed. Lisa, I do see there's a lot of questions in chat. What are those questions?
I'm sorry, I'm not seeing any new questions.
Yeah, I don't see any new questions right now either, Jim.
Okay, I was misunderstanding what I was saying. All right, sorry, Brian, go ahead.
That's right. We must be explaining it really well, so no questions are being needed. But yeah, the lineup cards are nice cards that the district has purchased and created, and will help the use of the lineup cards will help the coaches make sure that they're not playing ineligible players and pitchers and things like that. So, but as I said, get those cards to the tower as soon as possible. I do find a lot of times, Jim and I find we're chasing down those lineup cards. So help move things along, have those ready. 30 minutes before game time, again, whoever's announcing, the PA announcer will instruct the home team to take the field. It will be 8 minutes of warm up. So I would recommend, if you are an all-star coach for your first time, that you practice your warm up because it will be timed at 8 minutes. And then the PA announcer will give you a 2-minute warning, which would be 24 minutes before game time. So again, kind of practice your warm up routine, or have somebody possibly keeping time of your warm up so you're not shortchanging yourself when whoever the PA announcer tells you that we need to switch. So at 22 minutes before the game time, PA announcer will instruct the visiting team. So home team first, visiting take the field at 8 minutes warm up. And again, they'll get their 2-minute warning from the PA announcer. 14 minutes before game time, that's when the field crew will perform last-minute field prep if necessary. And in 12 minutes, the PA announcer will begin the pregame introduction script. So again, I would encourage those leagues that are hosting to make sure that your group goes over this list to keep things moving. PA announcer is going to do a pregame introduction script. Jim has done a great job of kind of just building from it. Creating the script for you. So obviously you'll want to print these up, have extras in your towers or your boxes. And it's really lined up where you're just going to fill in for that day and wherever you're at, right? So won't read it word for word, but you will fill these out for the PA announcer to give that pre-game introduction reading. Example, before beginning today's game, let me remind you the Indiana District and whoever's hosting it. So in this case, we'd say Newcastle Little League Baseball expects good barbecue. So you'll be able to say those things while you're reading from this. So if you scroll down, Jim, then what we'll do is now we'll meet the lineup for the visitors. They'll name the name of the Little League team, which league that is. And again, you will have in your, I believe, Jim, remind me if I'm correct, your affidavit books where you have the pronunciation of those players' names that could be very difficult will be in the tower. I'm sure Jim will talk about the affidavit book process, but having that sheet filled out helps out the announcers not screw up kids' names because they do take pride in listening to their name as well as the families. And then, of course, with the lineup, they'll introduce each player in the batting line in order. If the player's starting in the field, where they're at, first name, last name. If the player's not starting, they'll also list their jersey number, first name, and last name. And again, to be consistent, just follow the script. It's also important that we take pride in Little League and who all is involved. So the managers and coaches will also be announced. So on that lineup card, you'll need to make sure that the managers' names are spelled correctly and listed on the lineup card so the announcer can list that, as well as the president of your league. We like to announce that as well. And then also we do it for the home team, same situation. So just follow the same player introduction instruction for the visiting team above. You can scroll down, Jim.
There was one question.
Yep.
Wanted to answer, and it was, does it have to be the manager doing the coin flip or addressing the umpire for any question or lineup changes, or can the assistant coaches do this as well? It can be an assistant or the president doing the coin flip, and I believe Don or DJ will address this in the rules section. When you are addressing the umpires during the game, it may only be the manager. Okay. So that answers that question. Then Don also had a comment that I don't believe was related to that question. And it had to do with warm-ups on the field. And for the 8 minutes of warm-up where we were talking about the home team and the visiting team each get 8 minutes of warm-up, Don noted that only the assigned team, be it the home or the visitors, may be on the field during warm-ups. So you can't have the home team, for example, having their 8 minutes of warm-up and the visiting team in the outfield throwing the ball around. The team that's not during their warm-up must be in the dugout during the other team's warm-ups. Okay, so that's just a bit of clarification. So now I will scroll down for you.
Yep. Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Don. It's also important, we like to announce the umpires' names. So you will get that from the head umpire or someone from the umpire district group before the game starts, and we'll want to announce them as well too. So Don and the group DJ and the group do a good job of making sure the assignments of where they're at, third base, second base, home plate, and the full names. Then we'll move on to the anthem and pledges. And it is important for you districts or your leagues that are hosting district tournaments that you only do the national anthem for the first game day only. So if you're doing multiple games that day, it's just the day's first game only. After that, the next game, you would just recite the Pledge of Allegiance. And of course, national anthem might be one of those things you want to have recorded on your music list. So you go right to that national anthem if that's what you play. And then the Pledge of Allegiance will be just read out by the PA announcer. And again, you'll ask people to stand, remove their hats, and honor our country, and then read that. After that, either the national anthem or the Pledge of Allegiance is read or played, then you'll move to your Little League pledges. And again, as you think about all the players are still lined up out there, umpires are out there, then you'll start the parent and volunteers. Please repeat the volunteer pledge after me. I shouldn't have to say it, but you just say one sentence, one bullet point, and then wait for someone to repeat that. Then you'll move to the players, and they'll repeat the Little League pledge after the announcer as well. And then your final announcements: have a great game. Managers, please meet with the umpires at home plate. I think I covered everything, Jim. I don't know if there's any questions when it comes to, I know you did the chat, but it's pretty self-explanatory. Follow the script and it becomes pretty norm, and you keep things moving pretty good.
There is one thing I want to note that I didn't really explain in this document, and that is back here during the player introductions, the PA announcer will announce each player in batting lineup order, and we want to have the players leave the dugout at that time and run out and line up along the baseline in front of their dugout. That's the way we do that, just like they do for high school baseball, for example. And then the coaches will be introduced as well. So then you talked about this, that we also have the PA announcer responsibilities. Ryan, do you want to cover that, or do you want me to do it?
Go ahead, Jim. You're good.
Okay. All right. So I've got a list of the PA announcer responsibilities for the game. Announce all batters as they come to the plate, please. We used to do positions as well, but with the continuous batting order and free substitution, it's not as easy to keep track of that. So just announce the player's number and their name as they come to the plate. You should not, the PA announcer should not ever offer assistance if a team sends the wrong batter to the plate. And we'll have Don or DJ talk more about that during the rules part of the meeting. We need the announcer to announce all pitching changes in both baseball and softball, and catching changes in baseball. That's very, very important, that both teams are alerted to changes in the pitchers and the catchers. And also must be brought to the attention of the scorekeeper, because sometimes that can get by people. So the umpires need to make sure that the PA person announces those changes, and it gets to both teams. I do see another question on here. Oh, Don just mentioned that players, when lining up for the pregame introduction, should stay off the chalk line. Yeah, it's bad luck to be on the chalk line. Also messes it up. All right, so that's announcing the pitching changes and the catching changes. All right, courtesy runners have to be announced when they are inserted for the pitcher or the catcher. We will, for baseball, we need the pitch count to be announced at the end of each half inning for the pitcher of record. So the pitch count for the half inning and the total for the game for that pitcher needs to be announced. We're lucky to have some leagues that have the pitch count on the scoreboard, and that's usually pretty accurate. I've never seen it not be accurate, because of the scorekeeper, and there's also a pitch count person usually in in the scorer's tower that keep a close eye on that. But the reason that this needs to be announced during the half inning is because the teams are also keeping track of this, of the pitch count. And if there is a discrepancy, they will want to get it straightened out right then and there instead of waiting until they're ready to pull their pitcher and they're pulling them at a certain number, only to find out that their count is wrong. And so it's real important that we alert the teams to the pitcher's count at the end of each half inning. All right, the other information that the responsibilities of the PA announcer: play music, have fun, do it before games and between innings, and make the game festive for everyone. But please limit your music choices to those appropriate for the setting. Don't play any music with inappropriate words or even censored versions of songs where you can really easily tell what is being said, even though it's edited. So make good choices on what music you play, but do play music and make it a fun, festive atmosphere. One other thing I want to mention here is that, and this is also part of the opening ceremony that we just went through. If the host league has tournament sponsors, you are authorized to announce those tournament sponsors. If we need something special during the script, like for example, leagues might want to have a moment of silence this year for the player that just died last week that's part of the Newcastle Henry County and a former player at Newcastle. Or happier thing, often around the 4th of July, I will have a special presentation of a historic flag and a short history of that flag that I will do during the middle of one of these. But those are authorized. Just check with me before you do it. So I know it's not something that's inappropriate, but a moment of silence or something like that, a sponsor would be perfectly fine. Now, the last thing I want to cover here is correct Little League terminology. There's no such thing in Little League as 8U, 10U, 12U, 14U, 16U, etc. Those are not Little League terms or divisions. So please, for the PA announcer, at the very least, use the correct names when referencing Little League divisions and teams. And I have those listed out here for the benefit of the PA announcers. The divisions, we got the coaches pitch 8, 9, and 10-year-old, 9, 10, 11-year-old, major Little League division, Little League baseball or softball, also known as majors, baseball or softball. We don't have intermediate 50-70 baseball, but the others are junior league and senior league baseball and softball. And then I've also listed the Little League names, the correct names of each of our leagues for 2024. Do we have any questions about those before we move on? All righty then. The next section is supposed to be the league, the tournament rules discussion, which is being covered by DJ with assistance from Don. DJ, are you on yet?
Have not seen him.
All right. Well, he said he would be coming on late, and he asked that we please save his section for last. So we will move on then to field decorum, which is going to be covered by Don Mason. So Don, you are up.
Okay, let's try to get through this. The first thing is kind of expectation of behavior. When participating in the Indiana District 6 tournament, which is the first round of the Little League International Tournament, we just ask and expect all managers, coaches, players, fans, and district staff that you're representing your league and the community and the program in a respectful way. Our behavior is very important, and it demonstrates and reflects upon not only us as individuals, but also upon our local programs and the district as a whole. I've been involved in this program for 40 years, and there are still times something that happened 5, 15, 20 years ago, you'll hear about a certain league or a certain district, and that it carries that stigma with them, regardless of the fact that those people are no longer involved. So just be mindful. We know it gets tense. We know it's tournament time, but we all need to do our best to portray a positive environment. Kind of led into the next point, where the Little League tournament is the largest and most prestigious youth sports tournament on the planet, and we are visible. Social media over the last several years has really made that more visible. There's not anything that happens that isn't out there on social media within just a few moments of something happening. Do not be the one that embarrasses yourself, your family, your league, or the community, or district, or Little League. Only individuals on the team's affidavit and players on the game's lineup card may be in the dugout. We don't have bat boys. We don't have bat girls. We don't have alternates. They must be, like I said, on the affidavit and the lineup card. Family members, parents, siblings, friends may not be in, around, or make visits to the dugout during the game. Obviously, an emergency situation or something like that, there would be allowances, but just to go in the dugout and pay a visit, it is not allowed. Interaction and communication, this is specifically for the managers and coaches, should only be between managers, coaches, and players, and with the umpires. And obviously, in situations where you want to tell the other team a good play or nice job, you're more than welcome to do that. Communication with your fans or a fourth coach is not recognized outside the dugout, and you are not to have any type of communication with those at any time during the game. It's very important to realize your scorebook, if you're going to have one, needs to be in the dugout with one of your coaches. A fourth person sitting outside the dugout is not permitted to relay information to the managers, coaches. They are not allowed to ask for that information from somebody outside the dugout. It's special for the players, and many will hold this experience special throughout their lives. It is not just another tournament, so let's all treat it as a special event. When you're interacting with the umpires, treat them with the utmost respect. You will not always agree with their calls, and that's understandable. Sometimes as an umpire, we don't always agree with your coaching decision, but we don't talk about that to you. Little League umpires, we don't put up with a lot of nonsense. The pool, District 6 is very fortunate to have umpires that are volunteer basis. Most of them do not go to leagues and get paid that umpire the tournament. And, they're out there volunteering their time. So, a lot of times they're working a lot of games during the tournament, and somebody gets out of line. What was said the first game may not be tolerated the 7th or 8th game that they're working when they're working 7 or 8 days in a row. So just don't test their tolerance. Little League, like I said, they're volunteers. They're out there for the players, not the money. So let's just show them the respect and appreciation they deserve. Little League wouldn't be able to exist if it was paying its umpires for every game. Just remember the calls that are judgment: safe out, fair foul, ball safe. Those are not to be argued. If there are questions about a rule application, then it's every manager's responsibility and right to respectfully ask for timeout and to discuss it with the umpire and to get clarification. If they're not happy with what they're being told and they still think they're right, then that can be elevated at that point up to the tournament. It would go to Jim. Basically, what you would have to do is say, thank you for the explanation. I still think it's wrong, and I would like to play the game under protest. At that point, it stops. It goes to Jim, and Jim would be the one that would contact Little League to get resolution. So we don't like to have protests. Our umpires are pretty knowledgeable, but if you're 100% convinced you're right, then that's your responsibility to protect your team and to go that avenue if you feel necessary. That needs to be done before the next pitch, though. Let me say, and it says there, once it goes to Jim, he makes the call to Central Region. Central Region will rule on it. If you don't accept that, then it can go all the way up to Williamsport, and then they will agree. They will give the final determination. Managers, coaches must adhere to the requirements of Little League Rule 111, which I don't have that in front of me. But Little League patches are required to be worn on all uniforms. Managers and coaches, we just want you to look respectful out there. We would ask, you don't wear baseball pants or baseball shorts. We ask that shirts have sleeves, no cutoffs. Collared shirts are preferred, but team shirts, if they're similar to what the players are wearing, are permitted, or a nice stripe bit. We're fine with that. No short shorts, cutoff shorts, so forth, or tank tops. No sandals, has to be closed-toe shoes. Spikes and cleats are not to be worn by managers and coaches and will not be allowed on the field. And then I just wanted to mention one other thing that we didn't hit earlier. Before the game, before your team takes infield, you should have your players, and this is especially for our new leagues, they need to line up all of the bats and all of their helmets and the catcher's helmets in front of their dugout so that the umpires can do an inspection before every game. Key here is every bat, every helmet, and every catcher's helmet. If they're not going to use it, don't bring it into the dugout, because once it's brought into the dugout, it has to be inspected. And if it's not legal, then it's removed. And Jim will have to go over exactly what he does with that, but the umpires will remove it. And I believe you get it back after your team's eliminated from the tournament. So if you're going to go play a travel game, in a few days, and your team's still going to be playing in the tournament, you probably won't get that piece of equipment back until you're eliminated from the tournament. That's all I have.
Don, we would probably say we want them to have the equipment lined up in front of their, probably leaning up and lined up in front of their dugout, probably when 40 minutes before the game, 45 minutes before the game.
Yeah, I would say, about 40 minutes before the game. The different umpires will inspect it at different times. If your team's getting ready to take infield and the coach needs to grab a bat and the catcher needs to grab her catcher's helmet, you're welcome to do that. The umpires will just check that. But yeah, we want everything outside your dugout, leaning up against the fence. We don't like to come in the dugout, but if we see bats still in a bat bag or helmets, we'll ask you to bring those out. But yeah, I would say 40 minutes, Jim, would be sufficient.
Okay. A good rule for you managers and coaches to follow when discussing this with your team is they should not bring anything to the game or have anything in their bat bag that they're not going to use in the Little League game, because they will want to have, all bats will need to be out of their bat bag and be inspected. And if, like Don was saying, if a bat is an illegal bat for Little League, and for Little League, for baseball specifically, you can only use the USA bat, not the what's the other one, USSSA bat. If you present one of those, it will be confiscated. And like Don said, we will keep it until the end of the tournament so that it isn't put back out there or possibly mistakenly find its way to the plate during the middle of a game. We will confiscate them and they will not be returned until the end of the tournament. So is tell them not to bring any equipment in that is not going to be used in the game. Now, I think DJ is going to cover this in the rules section a little bit more about equipment. And if he doesn't, I will prompt him to, but there are also some regulations about stickers on helmets and things like that that we'll need to pay attention to. And if a player has like a travel team helmet that has stickers on it that they don't have a specific letter from the manufacturer saying it's okay, then those would get confiscated too. So we'll probably discuss that a little later in DJ's portion.
Yeah,
Jim.
remind them to talk about that, Jim, because I know we have with the situation with the former player passing. I know there are a lot of stickers in honor, so it needs to have a clear discussion on what is not allowed or how to get that to be allowed. So appreciate you
Right.
saying that, because I know that is up there. And also the
And DJ
confiscation.
has joined. Sorry.
Oh, it's okay. The confiscation also is not necessarily a legal bat, but DJ Don and those guys, sometimes they find cracked bats or equipment that's not proper or has been, like I said, not deemed for use. So those also are confiscated and removed. So
Thank you, Brian. Those are great additions. Don did talk about Rule 111. I have not included that here. I would want you guys to look that up and read through that in the Little League rule book. I think it talks about all equipment in there, as well as what team managers, coaches must adhere to. But in general, if you just follow the rules we have here in this last bullet point, you're going to be absolutely fine. It's not that picky. It's just we want you guys to look presentable. All right. Any questions before we move on to the next part?
I have a quick question.
All right, go ahead.
There's a certain time limits where a team's allowed the field to practice, but before that time, are teams allowed to warm up in the outfield?
Yes, I don't think there's any objection to that, is there, Don or DJ?
No, we're fine with that.
Yeah.
We're fine with that until the first team takes the field, and then they need to be off of it. But before that, teams can go out and do like the pregame warm ups, throwing, catching, whatever they want to do on their half of the infield. I mean, their half of the outfield until the first team takes the field.
Don, there's a question in the chat about the bookkeeper needing to be in the dugout. Can you please review that again?
Yeah, so basically the scorekeeper would be, if they're not in the dugout, they would be a party that is not part of the coaching staff. And Little League does not recognize a non-member of the coaching staff as far as working with the team or communicating with the team. So that whoever that scorekeeper is, as far as the tournament's concerned, is they are just another parent or fan, and they don't have any responsibilities tied to the team. So the scorekeeper needs to be one of the 3 members that are part of the coaching staff.
To expand on that, Little League limits a team to 3 coaches, 1 manager and two assistant coaches. Nobody else, no parent, anybody can be doing something to assist the team during the game. We've had all sorts of interesting situations with this. We've had coaches in the outfield positioning players. We've got, as Don has mentioned, the bookkeepers outside of the dugout. That used to be allowed in situations where there were limits on the number of coaches a team could have because they had a specific number of players on their roster. Those regulations have been eliminated. Each team is permitted to have 2 coaches and a manager. So they are requiring now that the book be kept inside the dugout with the team and not by somebody outside. So just know that you're limited to just those 3 coaches. Don or DJ can discuss what kind of penalty there would be if we have to keep asking someone outside the fence to stop coaching, taking action to coach the team. But that's really what Don's getting at there is you're limited to just 3 coaches. Okay. I see another question in the chat. Is that the same one you were asking about, Lisa?
Yes.
Okay, very good. All right. Is there any other discussion that's needed on that before we move on? All right, Don's already mentioned this. So before we get to DJ and the rules discussion, I'm going to talk about the chain of command and protests. Because there is a very rigid procedure that needs to take place if a manager, not a coach, manager has to discuss this with the umpire in chief, the plate umpire, when they have a protestable situation. So we're going to talk about protestable situations now. All right, no protest shall be considered on a decision involving an umpire's judgment. And we already discussed a judgment. Ball strikes, safe out, foul fair, illegal pitch, okay? No protest can be considered on an umpire's judgment. And we discussed that all protests must be settled before the next pitch is thrown. If the next pitch is thrown, you can't go back and say, well, I've got this situation. Well, if the pitch is thrown, there can be no protest. Protests will be considered under the following conditions: violation or interpretation of a playing rule. So if you think the umpire's got the interpretation of the rule wrong, you're able to protest it respectfully. Go to the umpire in chief and do it just like Don instructed a few minutes ago. Other things would be the use of an ineligible pitcher or the use of an ineligible player in the game. Okay. There's no penalty for the manager to make a valid protest and request that have it heard through the chain of command. If you're found to be wrong on it, just move on. All right. There's no penalty. There is a chain of command that must be followed, however, and I'm going to explain it. First, you must go to the umpire in chief. You will discuss it with the umpire in chief. If you do not agree with the umpire in chief's decision, well, he will typically, after hearing you out, gather his umpires, his crew, discuss it with them, come back to you with his decision. If you don't like his decision, you can say, I want to take this up a level and take it to the district administrator. That's me. I will hear your concern. I will make a judgment and I will make a ruling. If you don't like my ruling, you can go up further up the chain of command. And you can say, I want to send this to regional headquarters. Okay. At which point, then I have to get on the phone with the tournament committee. They have a special hotline for me to call. It'll typically be somebody from Central Region. I will explain them the situation. They have a nice little card I have to fill out for every one of these, giving them very specific information. They will make a ruling. If you don't like their decision, then you can say, I want to send it to the tournament committee in Williamsport. They will then take it to the tournament committee. The tournament committee will make a ruling. The decision of the tournament committee is final and binding, and you got to live with it. Okay. So that's the chain of command for protests. I'm not going to say anything about protests and how many we haven't had in the past few years, because I don't want to risk our luck. Okay. So, because a couple of years ago, we had a lot of them. But the decision of the tournament committee is final and binding. All right, moving on. The following situations must be called to the tournament committee in Williamsport. All forfeit requests. I'm not allowed to authorize a forfeit. The umpire is not allowed to authorize a forfeit. We have to call that in to the tournament committee, and they will rule on whether or not there can be a forfeit or not. I've never known them not to, but it's their decision. Okay. I'm not allowed to authorize that. Another thing that has to be called in, and we won't see very many of these, not at least not as many as these anymore, since we have continuous batting order. And this was the whole reason for continuous batting order, are mandatory play violations found after a game is completed, or during the middle of a game for that matter. Pretty hard to do with mandatory play, but I guess you could do it somehow if you don't bat all your batters. The use of an ineligible pitcher that's found out after game completion. Let's say we have somebody that had pitched over the limit for 4 days of rest, and it didn't get caught, and they were pitching on after only 2 days of rest. That's an ineligible pitcher, and that would have to be called in. Or the use of an ineligible, I'm having trouble with ineligible tonight, ineligible player after the game is completed. And hopefully, if I do my job and get your affidavits completely done, which I will, we shouldn't have to worry about that one. And then all protests have to be called in should they not be settled by the umpire in chief or by me. They have to be called in. All right, as I was saying, if one of these protestable situation occurs, the DA, me, there's my phone number, must be called immediately. Like I will be at almost all the game sites, so you won't have to call me on my phone because I'll be paying very close attention to the games. But should it be one of those nights where I'm at a different site, like for example, I will be at the 8, 9, 10 softball tournament instead of at the major and 8, 9, 10 baseball tournament for that night. The person, the site director for that night would need to call me because I'm the only person that's allowed to call it. I got a top secret number to call the Little League Tournament Committee, and they will take care of it immediately afterwards. Protests can take a little bit of time, but we want to make sure we get it right. But because they do take a little bit of time, everyone needs to work together to help avoid forfeits or protestable situations like the ones listed above. So all officials, including managers, coaches, scorekeepers, and umpires, tournament directors, the district administrator, etc., should make an effort to prevent a situation that may result in the forfeiture of a game or suspension of tournament privileges. However, should one of these individuals miss something and not stop a big goof before it happens, and we've had that happen before. It happened once at the regional, at the Central Regional that we host. This was back when it was pretty easy to screw up mandatory play. One of the coaches had things messed up a little bit, and the scorekeeper could have helped him, but the scorekeeper missed it as well. Back then, the penalty for violation of mandatory play was that the manager was removed from the team for the rest of the tournament, the entire tournament, not just the rest of that specific tournament, for the entire international tournament. And that's what happened. But it's still a penalty, even though that scorekeeper failed to help prevent such a situation. Any questions about that before we move on? Anything about chain of command and protest? All right, DJ has raised his hand. DJ?
Hi, everyone. If you have any doubt, ask. Call time. When time's granted, go talk to an umpire. I can't tell you how many times people come to me after a game or something like that. Oh, I didn't know, or you read in the rule book afterwards. If something seems fishy, let's get it right. Please. I would rather you leave the field knowing that you did everything in your power to win, which includes filing a protest if we need to, to make sure that we get rule interpretations right on the field. Again, just re-emphasizing that arguing safer out is not, you cannot protest that. Okay. A protest is a lodged complaint for a violation or misinterpretation of a rule, not a judgment call. So just wanted to throw that out there. If you have doubt, call time and ask. Let's get it right together.
All right, thank you, DJ. There were a couple questions that I just want to make sure everyone saw. One person asked, did I mention that the bookkeeper needs to be in the dugout? Yes, the bookkeeper needs to be in the dugout. Can you keep the book on Game Changer instead of on the paper book? And DJ responded that in the chat, yes and no. Game Changer can be kept in the dugout provided it is on a device that cannot send or receive messages or calls. The Game Changer also must be the official book. That's rule 3.17. DJ, do you want to expand on that any?
Yeah, sure. So I just want to make sure that we clarify here. If you want somebody to keep the book in the dugout, it has to be a coach. So it's not your 3 coaches plus somebody running Game Changer. You have 3 adults in the dugout. That's it. So I just want to make sure that's clear. And then secondly, if you want somebody in the dugout running Game Changer, that's fine. It needs to be on a device that basically it can't be on your phone. You can't get texts or calls on that, or an iPad with data. And then we would not reference Game Changer in the question of a scoring or anything like that. We would go to the tower, to Jim's scorekeeper, and that's who we would go to. The official book is kept by the tower, by Jim and his team. So you can keep Game Changer. It's not going to be used for reference at any point during the game.
All right. Any other questions about that before we move on to the rules?
So Jim, this is Jeremy. So is it not a common practice that people keep the book? They just rely on the scores in the booth. I'm just trying to understand this because I understand that the third coach is there to help the girls in the dugout, especially in the minors. It seems counterproductive that they would be doing a book and fulfilling their role of taking care of the dugout. So I'm trying to better understand if it's even worth keeping a book because of the official scorebook.
As a manager or coach, and DJ can answer this as well, but I'll just answer from my point of view. I don't think I could function without a book in the dugout, keeping track of things. For most of the all-star teams I was part of, I was only the manager on one of them. And I kept the book, even though I was the manager. But all the rest of them, I was that coach in the dugout that you were talking about. But I also kept the book, told the girls when it was time for them to go to bat, etc. So you might see it as counterproductive. I don't think I could function without being the person keeping the book and managing the dugout. So that's just my opinion. Now, DJ, you were going to add.
Yeah, there's no rule that says you have to keep a book in the dugout. I would say that having a lineup maybe posted on the fence or something for the girls, so that way everybody knows who's due up next, kind of like back when we played ball. But there's no rule that says you have to keep the book in the dugout. Jim's team does a good job announcing pitch counts and stuff like that. You can use an old school pitch counter. If you're worried about pitch count, you referenced girls, so I'm assuming you're talking about softball. You would only have to really worry about pitch count. So there are workarounds for sure.
So DJ, regarding the issue that you mentioned about using your phone or like a tablet with data, so I mean, I suppose we could turn our data off. We're pretty used to keeping Game Changer on our phone just because it's such a simple way of keeping book. And obviously we understand that we wouldn't be able to use it as the official book, but it might prompt us to ask about something. But a lot of our fans are used to following that on Game Changer. We'd have to turn that function off so that they can't see that game if they can't make it to the Diamond that night.
I mean, that's where there's no rule that says you can't have somebody in the stands keep your Game Changer for you. So that way the friends and family that aren't able to make it to the game can follow along. You just can't interact with that person. They would have to be aware of watching for substitutes, just like the scorer's tower is, and all of that stuff. The beauty is we have continuous batting order. Yeah, there are going to be some defensive substitutions they'll have to keep an eye on, but you don't have to worry about batting changes or anything like that. So
Okay.
yeah, that's kind of how I would guide you. Jim can speak to differently. My job is just to tell you the rule and where it is in the rule book.
That makes sense. I mean, we can manage that pretty easily, because then we can have somebody in our dugout keep Game Changer that's not connected to the internet, so we have that for reference, and we can always find somebody in the stands to do that if fans want to follow that along, and we just won't communicate with them. But I just wanted to clarify that at least.
Yeah, Game Changer is a fantastic tool and resource. I'm a huge fan. I follow a lot of your teams as they advance throughout the district and state tournaments and stuff like that. But we got to make sure that we're doing it within the confines of the rule book. I can tell you, the further you advance in the tournament, the more strict that this type of stuff gets. So just be ready for that. If you make it to a regional, we take all of your electronic devices and put them in a drawstring knapsack for the entirety of the game. So just throwing that out there.
Any other questions or discussion? All right, before we go to the rules, I have included on here, in case any of you decide that you want to live stream tournament games. Little League has changed their rules just a tiny bit this year. It used to be any tournament game, you had to have a contract with Little League to be able to broadcast it. They had to have the rights, and you would have to sign a contract with them to be able to do it. But with live streaming becoming easier and more people doing it, they've really loosened up on that. And so you are permitted to do it without even telling Little League. But they do have some guidelines that I want to make sure you guys know about. Now, hopefully, all of you leagues, each team is going to have a form release and waiver, the model release that I've asked that everybody put for each player. DJ, we also need those for umpires because of this streaming rule. Each player has to have one that's involved in the game, and they all have to have approved that they have approved the form release and waiver. If somebody dissents, if somebody says no, then, and it can be a coach, manager, player, or umpire. If they say no, we do not give our approval, then I'm sorry, but you're not permitted to live stream the game. Okay. So what I would ask, if you're going to live stream the game, fan, league, whatever, somebody gets a hold of me before the game starts, and I will tell you if any player, umpire, or coach on the team involved has said, no, we can't do this. Okay. So that's just something you need to know about. I'm not going to read through the whole thing. I'm leaving that up to you. But the permission of public notice is very, very important in Little League's eyes. And so we need to pay attention to that. And so I'm not going to have further discussion on that. I'm going to let DJ take over, and he is going to give us the tournament rule presentation, and Donna's going to assist him if there's anything that's different for the softball. DJ, do you have a handout or something that I need to be sharing?
I was going to screen share if possible. I was just going to go through the PowerPoint thing that I have just so that way everybody can have the visual.
Okay. I might have to
But it
figure
says
out how to
host
do that.
disabled participant screen sharing. So maybe Lisa can help.
Okay.
Jim is the admin. I cannot help. Sorry.
Oh, no.
Well, you might have to come point me to what I need to do.
Okay, I'll come in and see.
DJ, are you able to screen share at this point?
Oh, yeah, I am. There we go.
There it is. Let me get
Perfect. Thank you, Jim. All right, everyone. I know we've been going
I
for a
don't
little
see the
while.
screen share.
You can see it, right?
No, I can't see it.
I am screen sharing.
Yeah,
see
I
it.
can't either. I'm still seeing Jim's.
Oh, it says I'm screen sharing. Let me start over.
Hmm.
Jim, stop screen sharing. Okay, share,
There you are.
share, share. What about that?
There it is.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. All right, everyone. I know we've been going for a little while tonight, so I don't want to take. I'm going to try and go through this quickly. It's about as similar as the regular season playing rules. The way that this works is our regular season rule book is our rule book. That 3.17 for the electronic devices, that is our rule book. It's in there. The tournament playing rules, there are portions of the tournament playing rules that supersede the regular season playing rules, and that's pretty much what we're going to go over tonight, and then just kind of rehash some important things. This is in the rule book. It's after the regular season rules. The last rule in the rule book is Rule 9. There's a couple other things, and then tournament playing rules. So if you need to find it, it's also available in the app as well. If at any point anybody has a question, please ask it either in the chat or raise your hand and we can get to you. And Jim and Lisa, if you can just kind of help me manage that because I can't see anything. So we're going to dive in really quickly. 2023 significant rule changes. I left those on there just because we didn't have any significant rule changes for baseball in 2024. But the 2024 significant rule change that we did have was for softball. Leaping is now legal. So we're aligned if you're playing travel ball or you're following high school rules or college rules or anything like that. We are now aligned with them in regards to leaping. Before we move on, Don, any additions or additional comments here for the leaping rule in softball?
It just made it easier for everybody.
Yeah.
So no, I don't have.
Wonderful. Awesome. We'll dive into these other ones as we get through the presentation. But like I said, I want to move through here. So our bat specs, Jim was talking about that when I was able to finally join. Baseball, you need to have the USA bat. For majors and below, it has to have that USA baseball stamp on there. For intermediate and above, you can use the USA bat or BBCOR for intermediate and above. So just kind of keep that one in mind. For softball, you need to be looking for that BPF, that bat performance factor of 1.2 or lower, for our BPF on softball bats. The dimensions are there: minors and majors, intermediate and juniors, senior league. So those are all there. If at any point you want to take screenshots or pictures of the screen, please feel free. I will do my best to get this downloaded into a PDF form and get this sent out to everybody so you can have it. But if you want to take screenshots, this is not proprietary by any means. Okay. Quick note here. I'm assuming Jim and Don talked about it. Maybe I've been at work. I'm in the middle of nowhere right now. But only one batter outside on deck batter. That's what I'm trying to get at. And majors and below, only one on deck batter, and that's the batter who's coming up to bat. They need to be taking their warm-ups in front of their own dugout. With that, at no time is a batting donut, the circular weighted accessory. Those are not allowed in Little League Baseball at any level. Pine tar is not allowed at Little League Baseball at any level. So please keep that in mind. The traditional batting sleeve, the weighted batting sleeve, that is allowed. But batting donuts are not allowed. Do not ask me why. I don't know.
DJ,
go ahead.
Clarify that you said on deck batter, majors and below. Are you talking the first batter of an inning? Because you're not
Yeah.
talking, there's, okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
the
that wasn't
first-
clear.
Yep, I apologize. Yep, first batter of the inning. Sometimes, we see, regular season visits or whatever. We see 4, 5, 6, 7 batters out in front of the dugout. That is not a thing. It is the batter who is coming up to bat. No, there is no on deck batter. No, they can't be outside of the dugout taking on deck swings, because then they would be outside of the dugout, and all participants must be inside of the dugout unless they have express permission from the umpire. So just some things that happen throughout the regular season that we kind of get grief for sometimes as we enter the tournament season. Pitcher's undershirt needs to be solid. It needs to be a solid color, and it can't be white or gray. The pitcher's glove cannot be white or light gray. Sometimes you might have a black glove with like white laces. That's okay, but the glove itself cannot be white or light gray. It's the umpire's judgment on what light gray means. Play calling bands. You are now allowed to wear play calling bands as of last year. That was one of our rule changes, but the rule says that they must be worn as intended, which means that they need to be worn on their arms. Okay, on the arms. You cannot have a play calling band on your belt, on your thigh, or anything crazy like that. It has to be on your arm. And if it's the pitcher, it has to be on their glove arm. So the same arm that they have their glove, or the same hand that they have their glove on, that's the arm that has to have the play calling band. It also cannot be white, gray, or optic yellow. 309, coaches may not warm up pitchers during the tournament. So this changed last year. You were able to begin warming up your players during the regular season. Used to be not at all. So now in the regular season, coaches and managers, you can warm up your players. During the international tournament, though, you're not able to. Okay. Run rule. We still have 15 after 3. We still have 10 after 4. In intermediate and above, it is 15 after 4 and 10 after 5. But the 8 after 5 rule is a regular season only rule. So we have to get to 15 or 10 after 3 or 4 in order to have a run rule. The 8 after 5 is a regular season only. 602C is our 1 foot in the batter's box rule. So anytime the ball is not cleanly caught, the batter can leave the box. If the ball is cleanly caught, so basically a called strike or a called ball, they have to keep their foot in the box. Any other time they can step out, but there is a warning associated with this. Just kind of keep that in mind. It should be an announced warning, and then they could be subject to a strike. We have the intentional walk rule. You can auto walk a player and tell the umpire, hey, I want to walk this player. It can happen at any point in the count too. You could have a home run hitter up to bat. You might throw ball 1 and be like, you know what, just give them the other 3. That's totally fine. Those pitches still hit the pitch count, and you can only automatically intentionally walk somebody once a game. So if Jim Kemp is just a massive power hitter and he's up to bat, you can intentionally walk him automatically once. When he comes up to the 3rd inning and you want to intentionally walk him again, you can, but your pitcher has to physically throw the pitches. You cannot automatically intentionally walk the same batter more than once a game. Each batter can be intentionally walked once per game automatically. Hustle your players in and out.
Before we
Go
move
ahead.
forward, there was a question.
Oh, okay.
It was from Josh, and it was about softball glove. And I've lost the question.
Can a
Josh, go ahead.
softball pitcher have a white glove? I'm going to defer to Mr. Don Mason. Or I can, Don, are you there? You're muted if you're talking.
Josh, we'll get an answer on that.
Yeah, we'll get right back to you, Josh. Sorry. Prep pitches. We want you to hustle your players in and out. You got 1 minute in between innings. So if that means that you're going to talk to your defense before sending them out, okay. But you might only get 2 warm-up pitches. Visits in majors baseball and up, you have 1 visit an inning. If you go out a second time, or excuse me, this is 9 to 11. Oh my gosh. This is 9 to 11 and up. Sorry, minors is specifically 8, 9, and 10 years old. Once an inning, twice a game. So if you go out 2 times in 1 inning to visit your pitcher, or talk to a defender, a defensive player. You would have to pull your pitcher. If you go out twice in a game, that's fine. But if you go out a third time, you have to pull. 8 to 10, you get 2 times an inning and 3 times a game. So if you go out a third time in an inning, you have to pull. If you go out 4th time in a game, you have to pull, which is pretty normal. All right, tournament playing rules. Baseballs must have the RST designation. Field sites are neutral. Winner of a coin flip has choice of home or visitor. The rule book, either the app or the physical rule book must be available at each site. Ground rules, they're specific to the playing field, must be approved by Jim and covered at the plate meeting with umpires and managers. Ground rules are not like, oh yeah, we play this way, or we have a time limit, or whatever the case may be. A ground rule, it means a rules, again, as the text says, they're specific to the playing field. Hey, if this is out of play, type situation like that. Hey, there's a net here, or whatever the case may be. Specific things in regards to the field. We're playing the rule book. So I already discussed this. So our tournament playing rules, the batter must remain in the box with 1 foot. A batter is entitled to 1 warning. This warning should be announced, like the umpire should say, this is a warning, you need to keep your foot in the box. After a warning, the umpire shall call a strike, and a pitch does not have to be thrown, okay? This is every batter all game long, okay? So it's not like one person gets the warning and then everybody for the rest of the game has to keep their feet in the box. You should get a warning every time it happens, but also please encourage your players to keep their feet in the box. It moves along. Illegal bat penalties, the batter is out, the manager is ejected, and you lose an adult base coach. That is all the same penalty, all at the same time. It's not like the regular season rule where it's I'm trying to think of the word, sequential. That all happens at the same time. So illegal bats, be aware. Uncaught third strike is for 9 to 11 and up. So our 11s and majors and above, you guys play drop third strike. 8, 9, and 10-year-olds, you do not play drop third strike.
Is that what softball too? The minors play uncaught?
Correct.
Okay, so it's no drop third on minors.
I will follow up, Don, if you're here.
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay.
Don, there was a question in the chat.
Yeah, it cannot be the color. The glove cannot be the color of the ball. So in softball, a white glove would be okay. Anything with yellow or anything that the umpire deems distracting would not be allowed.
Perfect. Thank you, Don.
115A is the rule reference. 115A.
Courtesy runner. You have to have 2 outs. Must have 2 outs for a courtesy runner. A player being ran for must be the pitcher or catcher of record. And so what that means is you can't run for somebody and say, oh, he's gonna be my catcher. No, it has to be who was the catcher the previous inning. Okay. You can't, oh, I'm gonna bring him in to pitch. It doesn't work like that. Whoever the pitcher and catcher of record are. Whoever is running for them must be the player in the batting order who made the last out. Seniors, I don't think we're running seniors district tournament, but Brian, for your guys, when they make it to state, they still operate with special pinch runner because they still play 9 bat 9 and use those typical. It's pretty much typical baseball still. E, it just covers unsportsmanlike conduct. F covers what we've already discussed. Managers are not permitted to warm up a pitcher anywhere at any time. That's important to discuss. That means in pregame, any of those warm up type situations, you're not permitted to warm up your pitcher anywhere at any time.
That was a regular season rule, correct, DJ?
Yeah, regular season you can. Tournament you cannot.
Right. I had one question about the courtesy runner.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'd like to have clarified. Top of the first inning, the pitcher and catcher of record are the pitcher and catcher as listed on your lineup?
That's
or
correct.
Are they permitted in the top of the first?
That's correct. That's the people who are in the lineup.
All right. Answers my question. Thank you.
Baseball pitching rules, just as far as like pitch counts and stuff go. Just the standard catcher. If you're going to go from catcher to pitcher, you can't have caught in the 4th inning. So you can go 3 innings or less, 3 complete, and go from catcher to pitcher. You can go catcher, pitcher, catcher if you want. You can go 3 innings, throw 20 pitches or less, and then go back to catcher. That's fine. If you're going to start as a pitcher and you want your pitcher to become the catcher, they just have to throw 40 pitches or less. But if that catcher catches 1 pitch in their 4th inning of catching, they cannot go to the position of pitcher for the remainder of the day.
We have a couple questions, DJ.
Okay. Let me see if I
Um,
can come up here. The entire set of softball rules, if you have the Little League app, I would encourage you to download the Little League Rulebook app. It breaks it into 3 rule books. The baseball rule book, the softball rule book, and the challenger rule book. Pitching rules do not apply to softball as it says there. Baseball. Let me see if I can click in here and go back. Yeah, courtesy runner. That's soft. Is that softball? Do you use courtesy runner in softball, Jim or Don?
Yes.
Okay. Unsportsmanlike conduct is both. Managers cannot warm up pitchers. That's both. Illegal bats, both. Yeah, Don and I went through and tried to decipher where it's baseball only or softball only. Yeah, we did our best there. And if we catch something here, we'll call it out for sure.
But to
Right.
answer the second question, the majority of these rules apply to both baseball and softball.
Yep.
Unless stated otherwise.
Yep. Pitching in special games, you still need to be aware of your pitch counts. If you're playing in special games, keep that in mind. I would just encourage you to not play in any special games during our international tournament. Pitchers being removed from the mound and returning to the mound, that can happen, but only in an intermediate and above, and only once per game. So don't have to worry about that.
And only
Pitching
in,
rules.
and in
I'm sorry?
softball, it's juniors and above.
Correct. Yeah, because you don't have
Right.
intermediate softball. Yep. Thank you.
Yep.
DJ, on that
pitch
pitching rules on the screen before on this one, the pitcher to catcher to pitcher, those numbers, are they the same for seniors as well? Or is it
No.
different?
It would be 30.
That's what I thought.
It would be
Okay.
30. Yep. Pitch count rules here. So this is by your league age, 8, and again, this is a baseball. As we can see, we've got it highlighted. None of that's changed. You should be used to these things. These are the same. Softball, you have your 12 innings in a day. If you hit the 7th, is it the 7th or is it more than the 7th, Don? They need 1 day of rest.
No, if they hit the 7th, if they go more
Okay.
than 6 innings, then they need
Okay.
1 day rest.
Once you hit the 7th inning of pitch, you need 1 day of rest. 12 innings and a full day is what you got there in softball. Majors and below, you can't pitch in 2 games in a day. So if we were to happen to do a doubleheader in majors or below, you can't pitch in 2 games in a day. Juniors and above, 30 pitches or less, and you can pitch in that second game. And then a rule that people don't think about often, we get in these district tournaments and we play them very close together, sometimes, 4 or 5 days in a row. You cannot pitch in 3 consecutive days. So don't go out there and try and throw your pitcher 20-20-20, because on that 3rd day, they can't pitch. Baseball suspended pitch counts here. Pitcher of record can resume if the count is less than 40, if their pitch count is less than 40. If their pitch count is less than 20, they will restart at 0. If their pitch count is 21 to 40, they will resume at that stated count. There are some additional parameters for suspended pitch counts in Rule H. Didn't want to get into the weeds on them. Pitch count violation, penalties. The manager is typically going to be suspended for 2 games. I know Jim already referenced penalties for mandatory play and stuff like that earlier. So Just make sure that you're confirming. We typically do a good job announcing pitch counts in between in each inning, but you're allowed to ask and double check and make sure that you're following those parameters as well. Tournament Rule 4, pitching rules have some additional pitching rules there and for senior league specifically. Brian, just for you and your senior league guys.
All right, we have another question.
Oh,
And
okay.
this should be directed at Don. It's a softball question. Is the can't pitch 2 games in 1 day a softball rule also specifically for 8, 9, 10?
Sorry, Jim.
I think I can answer that one. You can pitch in more than one. You can pitch in more than 1 game in a day, but you are limited to 12 innings. And if you go over 7 innings, which the 8, 9, 10 is only 6 inning games, so you would have to go into extra innings. But if you go to 7 innings, the player would need a day of rest. Now, all our district tournament games, we're only playing 1 game a day. We're not playing double headers in any of the district tournament. So you would have to advance to state tournament before you would run into 2 games in a day. And I don't believe, well, I haven't seen the brackets, so I don't know for sure how they're going to do that, but typically they don't. We have a second question. I think that was an answer from Don, so I'm not going to talk about that. So anyway, that was the answer, and I'm sure I'm right on that. So you may continue, DJ.
Forfeits, Jim covered those. Okay, sorry, Jim. Forfeits, Jim covered those already. With coaches, talked about the scorebook. You can leave the dugout when time is granted by the umpire. Earlier, we talked about visits a little bit. A defensive timeout granted to talk to any defensive player equals a visit to the pitcher. So it's not specifically going to the pitcher to talk. If you're call timeout on defense and you leave to talk to any defensive player, it's a visit. 9 to 11 and up, you get 1 visit an inning, twice a game. If you go 2 and 3, you have to pull. 8, 9, and 10, you get 2 visits an inning. You go 3 times a game. If you go 3 or 4, you have to pull. On offense, you get 1 offensive timeout per inning. So if you want to call time and talk to your batter, that's fine. You can only do that once per inning. A little bit different than the regular season. A player injured or ill may only return to the game with approval from medical personnel. Mandatory play, Tournament Rule 9. So we will use continuous batting order in juniors and below. Each player bats in their respective spot in the order. Again, Brian already mentioned seniors and above will play baseball. Defensive substitutions are free and can happen at any time. They still do need reported to the scorekeeper. If a player leaves the game or the game site, they skip over. There is no out. If a player arrives late, you add them to the end of the lineup. If we have an improper batter is just covering 607 and what to do if we have batting out of turn. That's what BOOT stands for, batting out of turn. If a player fails to complete a plate appearance due to injury, ejection, or anything like that, the next batter takes their place and assumes the count of the original batter. So if I'm up there with a 1 ball, 1 strike count and I take a pitch to the face and I have to leave, Jim comes up in my place because he's after me in the lineup and he gets my 1 ball, 1 strike count. If a runner is unable to run the bases, similarly, injury, illness, incapacitated, whatever the case may be, they're replaced by the player who recorded the last out. So kind of like a courtesy runner type situation there. There are no exceptions to the continuous batting rule, continuous batting order rule, or any notes listed above. We are using continuous batting order. Can't not use continuous batting order. Managers are the ones that are solely responsible for ensuring your players fulfill their participation requirements, and our tournament committee reserve the right to impose penalties. Tournament Rule 10 discusses substitutions and re-entry. There's some stuff in there for senior league mandatory play, and there's substitutions, talk about improper substitutions, batting out of turn. senior league, you can use the designated hitter rule, the re-entry rule. Softball, designated hitter, DP flex. Is that a thing, Don?
It is at the older levels. I'm
Okay.
sorry. It is at the older levels, but we won't be, we're just going up to majors this year.
EJ, can we hit on something else in mandatory play before moving
Yes,
on?
Jim. Yep.
I asked earlier about the courtesy runner in the top of the first. And I think I might have rethought that. How does the mandatory play rule go? You have to run your first time at bat to complete your
In the
play?
regular season, yes. In the regular season, yes. In the tournament, you do not.
All right.
That's the clarification. That's the clarification that we have right now.
Okay. That's what I wanted to have clarified. So thank you.
Tournament Rule 11 is covering suspended games. We don't have like reverts or anything like that. The goal is to get these games completed. Any game suspended is resumed from the exact point of suspension. 15 after 3, 10 after 4. The home team needs to bat. We don't stop unless the home team gets their chance. A regulation game, 4 innings for majors and below, 5 innings for intermediate league and above, or juniors and above if it's softball. Regulation games must be resumed if the visiting team ties or takes the lead and the home team cannot complete its term at bat. No revert there. If doubleheaders are scheduled, which I don't think we have any right now, but there is no time limit for game 1, and our curfew does get a little friendlier in the tournament versus the regular season. Our curfew, and this is for both baseball and softball, majors and below, is midnight. Intermediate and juniors is 12:30, and seniors is 1 a.m. A tie game, majors and below, the 7th inning is played as normal. Intermediate league and juniors and above, 8th inning is played as normal. Majors and below, from the top of the 8th inning and each inning thereafter, the player who is scheduled to bat last in that inning begins the inning at second base. So if the 4 hole is leading off, the 3 hole runs out to second base. Very similar to our Major League rule, Major League Baseball rule, except we wait an inning where they do it in the 10th right away. We wait 1 inning. So again, in the top of the 8th and each inning thereafter, we begin with the last scheduled batter at second base. No tournament game may be replayed without approval from the tournament committee. No agreements can be made between any participant that directly violates the rules. Managers or coaches that cannot leave their position during a fight or physical altercation. Attempting to prevent or stop a fight is not a violation, and ejections will result in a suspension from the next physically played game. Q&A time. Again, I just want to, selfishly talk about protests. If you have a protest or if you have a question about rules or anything like that, that is the time to please to call time when time's granted. Let's get the rule interpretations right. Okay. I don't want people to find out later that they could have something could have gone differently because we didn't ask questions about a rule. So questions.
One thing that we want to cover that we started to talk about, and that's the equipment inspection and what the umpires are looking for in the equipment inspection, especially in regard to helmets and things like that.
To helmets. So helmets, things that we're looking for, the C-flap has become really popular. The C-flap must be it must be the same manufacturer as the helmet. I can't tell you legitimately how many times I've seen a screw be screwed into a C-flap straight into a helmet. Like dad grabbed the drill and screwed it in there. That is not okay. We're looking for cracks. We're looking for the NOCSAE, N-O-C-S-A-E. We're looking for that NOCSAE symbol. It's usually somewhere in the back, kind of off-centered. for that to just kind of be legal. We're looking for padding to be in good condition on the inside. We're looking for no visible cracks or visible damage to the helmet that we would deem it to be unsafe. And then lastly, there cannot be any stickers on helmets. So whether there's stickers on helmets now or whatever the case may be, we've found when inspecting at regionals and stuff like that, what's it called? Acetone nail polish remover helps with some of that residual sticker gunk and stuff like that. So that's what we're looking for. We want safe helmets. We want the kids to be safe. Does the helmet need to have the mask? In a batting helmet, no, not in baseball. I don't think that you have to have a face cage in softball either, Don, right? Or do you?
You do not.
Okay, cool.
Hey, DJ.
Yeah,
just
so, yeah.
because I may not know on the stickers. Like some of the helmets will come with like numbers from the manufacturer. Those are allowed still, are they not?
A manufacturer's sticker is one thing, because like whether it's an Easton helmet and there's an Easton sticker or something like that, you don't have to go prying off the manufacturer's stickers.
Well, I'm talking about like some of the manufacturers will supply a helmet that'll have numbers like that they can apply to it, or those like they might be number 12 and they put that on the back of the helmet. Is that still permitted or is that changed?
I will tell you right now that if there is a sticker that is on a helmet and a team makes it to the regional, it's getting taken off. It is no stickers. Like no stickers is what they're looking for.
Now they are permitted if you have a manufacturer's letter. Is that not still true?
I know that that's like been a thing that's been talked about, but after discussing it, at the regional level, it's I don't know where that came from. I know that I've said that that's okay in the past, and I've been told that that's incorrect. That stickers are not allowed. That I don't know where that started. I've heard that for years about the manufacturer letter and all that type of stuff. But I can tell you that if you have stickers on your helmet and your team makes it to regional, they'll make you take it off.
Don,
So is it, well, I'm just confused by that, but it's getting late. I just don't understand that thinking. Why they allow you to take it off but still use the helmet, because all along the position of Little League has been that stickers on a helmet is not how the helmet's intended by the manufacturer, and it can cause damage. So I don't understand removing the sticker and then using the helmet. I guess I would want clarification on that, but tonight's probably not the night.
I'll get clarification from Central Region, Don, and let everybody know.
Okay.
This topic.
I mean, I'm sure DJ's right. It doesn't make sense to me.
Hey, Don, are you alluding to the sticker on the front of the helmet?
I'm really alluding to any sticker that my understanding was it used to be a lot of times you could buy a helmet and it would come with a bag of numbers in it for the player to put his or her number on the helmet, or something like that. Or the manufacturer said, hey, putting a sticker on a helmet that covers less than 20% of the helmet does not what am I trying to say, does not degrade the helmet, and we approve of that. Does not avoid, or so I'm trying to, I don't know, I'm trying to figure out what Little League's, they have to have a reason for why. They have to have some logic in their eyes for why they're doing it, and maybe it's just not totally clear.
Yeah, so like when you mean sticker, you're talking about a decal like at the front of the helmet or on the number on the back, anything at all.
Right, that's right.
Okay.
And what DJ's saying is those cannot be there. And my whole approach,
and I've operated.
My whole approach has always been, because it's a
it's going to affect the integrity of the helmet has been how Little League has presented that in the past. So with that understanding, I've always said if it's got the sticker, it's got to come out and it's got to be held as illegal equipment until the tournament's over. So if they feel it's going to degrade the equipment, then why are they allowing you to pull a sticker off, clean it off, and then allowing the helmet to be good? So to me, it sounds like it's not a safety issue. It's more of a preference issue on Little League's behalf. Is kind of where my mind goes with how it's being represented now.
Well, I will
But
get
yeah,
clarification.
I think Jim needs to get clarification and send it out, and we'll all know what to do.
Brian, I know that there was concern about the sticker for Jackson. But I would encourage you to look at a patch or some sort of anything to put on, you know, the small, like a sleeve of a jersey or something like that. Because the sticker's only when they bat too, like that you know, his number on you know, the small of the sleeve or something like that is on their sleeve. You know, at all times.
Well,
I thought about putting a sticker on my chest protector for him, but I don't want
yeah,
to
but
do-
yeah,
do-
both leagues are doing something on the jerseys. It's been approved by International from Jim. I just know that I just want to make sure the coaches on here know that a lot of players have put multiple patches on their helmets, and they just need to know those things need to be removed before, you know, day of game again.
Gotcha.
Before, obviously, you guys put it out on the dugout as mentioned before, and I'd rather it be addressed before than rather the day that you are trying to have them remove stickers, and now all of a sudden 12 helmets all have stickers on it. So
And
I'll
that's
work with the leagues to let
that's
them
the
know
last
as well.
sticker I want to remove. Yeah, no,
Right.
I'm with you there. But yeah, we can absolutely seek additional clarification. I'm just kind of going off of what I've been told. So, but is there? I know we've been going at it for 2-ish hours or so, but this is the time to ask questions. Is there anything that doesn't make sense? Any questions about playing rules? Tournament rules, anything like that? This is the time to ask them. I can't stress it enough. Excuse me.
I think there's some chat questions too.
Oh. Does the helmet need to have a mask? Oh, no, the helmet doesn't need a cage or anything like that. Catcher's gear, I guess, since we're talking like shin guards, they can't be cracked. Your catchers need to wear cups. I've walked on the fields a lot this year, and the catcher saying no, they don't have a cup on. We got to do better. We got to do better protecting our kids. Female players do not have to wear a cup. The catcher's mask needs to have a dangling throat guard. Okay, needs to have a dangling throat guard. And the big thing with the catcher's mask as well, it can't be the two-piece. It can't be like the skull cap and, you know, the strap or whatever. It has to be the one piece. The helmet, the hockey style. We're looking for cracks. We're looking for the Noxay symbol in the back of that one as well. And the cage kind of gets overlooked a lot. The cage all the screws need to be there. And saw a mask one time this year that was missing 4 screws of 7 screws on the mask. And it's just like, how did we get here? So the catcher's mask needs to be in good repair as well. So dangling throat guard needs to be on there as well.
One other item I want you to cover, if you haven't already, if I didn't miss it, is jewelry.
So no jewelry is allowed. I think last year we did a rule change where players can have, I don't remember the specifics, but it basically says that players can have hard items in their hair. So like barrettes or hair clips or stuff like that. I don't remember the verbatim. I apologize about that, but they can have hard items in their hair, but no like accessory jewelry or anything of that nature.
All right. Does anyone have anything else? All right. I do want to make it clear that I know there are some optional rules for the regular season. There are no optional rules in the tournament. Now, the rules are what they are. Just about every year I hear fans out in the crowd saying, well, that's not how we play regular season. And that's just it's the way it is. The tournament is the tournament. It has its own rules. They are played the same from California to Florida. Everybody, everywhere in Little League, the tournament rules are the same. And there are no options. So if we don't have any more questions, thank you, DJ and Don. We will move on to the tournament draw. I will need Lisa to come on out, and we will get to that. And I need to turn on my camera. All right. Can you guys see me? So I can
Yes.
only see DJ
Yes, we can see you
Yes,
and
we
Vanna.
can see it.
and Lisa. All right. So we're going to go in order of when the tournament starts first. What's going on here? I screwed something up here somehow. There it is. All right, something's wrong. We're going to do the major softball first. And for major softball, we have 2 leagues. And we've got little chippies for each league. We have Mud Sock. Lisa will put them into the bag. And we have Newcastle softball. So they'll go into the bag. And then for these games, and unfortunately you can't see both me and the brackets at the same time. Game 1, this is going to be a best of 3 series because there's 2 teams. Game 1 is going to be Saturday, June 29th. It's going to be in Fishers. Game 2 will be in Newcastle on the 30th. And then game 3 will be a coin flip. The first 2 games, the Saturday in Fishers and the Sunday in Newcastle, I always let the teams or the hosts choose the start times of those games. Tom and Josh, do you have preferred start times for those games, or do we need to wait until tomorrow or the next day to set the start times?
Yeah, we'll talk about it and let you know tomorrow.
All right, we'll just do
I'm
that.
sorry, I wasn't prepared to. I'll just make sure. I want to talk to our because of our working with because of the days we're gonna have. We're also gonna have, I think the eight coach pitch. I just want to make sure everybody's good.
Okay. Well, it doesn't really matter that much for this one, but the tournament draw went Mud Sock first, and the second was Newcastle.
It's getting late.
That does not determine who's home and visitors. Well, we've done that. We've done it in the past that the first team out was going to be the home team for the first game. Do we want to do that again this year or have a coin flip?
First team out.
Don, I'll let you decide.
Are you saying for just this tournament or all tournaments?
For all the tournaments, the first team out of the bag for a game is the home team for that first game.
I'm indifferent on it.
That's what we've always done. We'll just do it that way. So
Yeah, I'm indifferent.
For game 1 of this tournament, Mud Sock will be the home team. Newcastle will be the visitors. But every game after that in this specific tournament will be decided. The home team and visitors will be decided by a coin flip. Okay. So we are just replacing the coin flip for this first game of each tournament by the draw. So that tournament bracket is set. So now we will move on to the next tournament on the list, and that will be the 8, 9, 10 baseball. So we don't need either of those teams. We have in that tournament. We will have Delta, Hagerstown, and 2 Newcastles. So we got Delta, we got Hagerstown, we have Newcastle White, and Newcastle Green. So first team out will be the home team for this specific game. Hold on a second, Lisa. All right, it will be played. It will be played at Hagerstown on the 6th of July. So the first one out is Hagerstown. So the visitors for this first game will be Delta.
Jim, this is the 8 through 10, right?
Yes.
There's a question in the chat. Okay. Question in the chat. Yes.
Game 2, which will also be at Hagerstown on Saturday, the 6th of July.
Newcastle Green.
Newcastle Green. So that means last one is Newcastle White. And Newcastle Green will be the home team for that game. And same as with the first tournament, the major softball tournament, Hagerstown and Delta. Delta will be the host of the second day of that tournament, which is on Sunday the 7th. You guys need to choose the times for the start times for those, and you'll be able to go out onto the Indiana6.org website and see these brackets and be able to choose for that Sunday and Saturday. So I'm going to save this one. And so this tournament will be set. All right. Next one we're going to do is running simultaneously with that tournament at 8, 9, 10. That's the majors baseball. And the teams that are in this are a little bit different. The major baseball teams are Anderson, Delta, Hagerstown, and Newcastle. So Anderson will be represented by the old Brooklyn Bee. You guys will always be Brooklyn to me. Delta, Hagerstown, and Newcastle. All right, let me get back to the website here. All right. These games will be on Saturday the 6th, also at Hagerstown. And the first one out was Delta. They will be the home team for game 1.
Against Anderson.
Anderson will be the visitors for game 1. And Hagerstown will be setting the time for that game. So game 2 will be
Newcastle.
Newcastle will be the home team. And so that means Hagerstown will be the visitors. All right. So then the second day of that tournament will be on Sunday. All 4 teams in both the 8, 9, 10 and the majors tournament will be playing on both of the first 2 games, first 2 days of the tournament. And so Delta and Hagerstown, those 2 leagues will have to set the times of those games. So those are all out on the bracket now. All right, so who's next? Next up, we have the 8, 9, 10 softball. And those are Hagerstown, Newcastle softball, and Mudsock. So there's Newcastle softball and Mudsock and Hagerstown. Let me pull up that tournament so I can edit it.
Mudsock.
So Mudsock will be the. Now I need to explain something about this tournament and the 9, 10, 11 tournament. We decided not to determine the host until after we did the tournament draw. And in discussion with Josh and Sean and Tom from the 3 leagues, the way we decided to determine the hosts for this was that the first team drawn would be the host of the first game, since we will have 1 game a day. And so then the host will be Mudsock then. They will also be the home team. And they will play
Hagerstown.
Hagerstown. It's the wrong place. Have to make a slight change here. Okay, so they're playing Hagerstown. So that means that game 3 will be at Newcastle, or game draw 3, game 2 will be at Newcastle. And that game will be decided, the home team will be decided by a coin flip. Now, because we want all of the teams, all of the leagues to be able to host a game, and we've got Mudsock and Newcastle already decided as the days that they are going to host. The way the bracket looks, to determine where Hagerstown is going to host, it will be whichever game they play in next. So if they lose game 1 and go to the elimination bracket, game 3 will be the game that they host on Wednesday, the 10th. And that would be at 6 p.m. since it's a weeknight. If they were to win game 1, they would then travel to Newcastle for game 2, and whoever hosts game 3 would then be dependent on which game that I'm getting mixed up here. It is getting late. Hagerstown will be the host of either games 3 or 4, whichever game of those 2 games they play in, if that's clear as mud. That's just when Hagerstown would be host. If they're playing in game 3, whether they lose game 1 or game 2 and end up game 3, then they're going to be the host. If they win both game 1 and 2 and are playing game 4, they will be the host of game 4. It's simpler than I'm making it out to be. And we will have the same arrangement for the 9, 10, 11 tournament, which we are going to draw next. So I've got the bracket updated for the 8, 9, 10 softball tournament. So we can move on to what I believe is our last tournament to draw. And that is the 9, 10, 11 baseball. And that tournament has Delta, Hagerstown, and Newcastle.
Hagerstown.
Here's Newcastle, and here's Delta.
Newcastle.
So
Delta.
again, the first team drawn is going to be the host and home team for night 1.
That will be Delta.
Delta will be the host.
And they will play Hagerstown.
So that game will be at 6 p.m. on July the 11th. All right. So now that means Newcastle will be the host of game 2 on Friday, July the 12th at 6 p.m. And just as was the case for the 8, 9, 10 softball, the day that Hagerstown hosts will be dependent on whichever game, either game 3 or game 4 they are playing in. So just let me go through all this, make sure I've got all of the tournaments drawn. I believe that I do.
Go potty. Go potty. Go.
Oh, that's interesting. 8, 9, 10 softball is set. 9, 10, 11 baseball is set. That's set. League baseball is set. And Little League softball.
Go potty. Go potty. Hurry up. Go potty.
Well, that's a first for the tournament draw.
Good, Don. I don't need to use the restroom. Thank you, though.
All right. I believe we have come to the end of the schedule. Thank goodness. Does anybody have any questions at all before we move forward? I do see there might be something in the chat. Let me look. Getting mice mixed up here. Okay, that was just a question on what we were drawing. All right. Does anybody have anything else to discuss or any other questions? Okay, if you do find out you have questions, please contact me. I don't want to leave anything left to guessing for people. I will find out the answer to the clarification on the stickers for helmets. And since nobody has anything else, thank you for sticking with us the whole time. It's been 2 hours, 25 minutes. And that's a long meeting. So I'll let everybody go. I'm going to go watch Hogan's Heroes, and everybody have a great night. All right. And Don, I hope things work out for your dog. Okay.
Thank you.
Good night.
Have a good night.